All right, guys, time to talk about the BlindShell Classic 3, the ill-fated review that has been dogging me for a while. Do you know, I think I put this on myself. I really do. I build myself up for these things, and then I feel terrible when I don't get round to them. But never fear, I am here, and I can tell you that I have been playing quite a bit with the BlindShell Classic 3, but not enough, I don't think. Not enough. So I thought we should bring someone in who knows his onions when it comes to this kind of stuff. He's been playing with it as well. It is, of course, our good friend, Michael Babcock. Hey, Michael Babcock's back here again. God, that's so late in coming in.
I was waiting for it.
That's terrible, isn't it? Honestly, it's pathetic.
I think we should change Mickey's name. I think he should now be known as Mickey Onions, because every time we have him on, you say he knows his onions. And that's not a lie, by the way, but Mickey Onions is the new nickname. Let's stick with that.
I don't know if I like that.
Gangster. Are you in the mob?
Okay, now I'm starting to like it there.
Okay, all right, fine. Yeah, so we're kind of doing one of these, I guess. Ask Michael anything about BlindShell Classic 3.
Well done.
With no questions.
And no questions here. No. We do have questions, but we will get to those because I want to just focus in on the device itself. Now, look, this is the traditional candy bars type smartphone. I say smartphone because it is a smartphone. You might call it a feature phone, but it's more than that, isn't it, Michael? It's more than that kind of device that we had for a long time. You know, what a lot of blind people were looking for, that talking candy bar type phone with physical buttons.
So I'm holding the BlindShell up, and I don't know if it's in frame or not, but we'll roll with it and pretend like it is for those on YouTube. It is more of a smartphone than the BlindShell Classic 2 was. I call the BlindShell Classic 2 a smart feature phone because it allows you to do different tasks on the device with physical push buttons, and you navigate with an up and down buttons. There are two bars on the device. There's an up button and a down button, and those move you through the menu. And one of the features, and we can talk about this, I'll play off of questions you have, is that the screen on the BlindShell Classic 3 is now a touch screen in third-party apps. Now, before you freak out, because I have heard quite a bit of stories about people's opinions of the BlindShell Classic 3 having a touchscreen. Your Classic 2 has a touchscreen too, just so you know. It's just disabled. And the Classic 3 only enables the touchscreen when you open third-party applications, but you don't have to use it if you don't want to.
Yeah, this is one of the differences with this new device. Now, I didn't have the BlindShell Classic 2. In fact, I think I had the very original BlindShell Classic way back when. So that didn't seem like a fair comparison at all. I mean, third-party apps, there's a new AI assistant in there called Luna, and there's a new Tandem app, which we'll talk about. Any other differences? There's no physical difference here between the 2 and 3, is there?
Physically, the phones are exactly the same. So your battery will fit from the Classic 2 and the Classic 3. Your cases will fit. So the phones themselves are physically identical. So holding the Classic 3 in your hand, Stephen, would be just like holding the Classic 2 in your hand. It's identical. Everything is in the same exact place.
Question?
Shaun?
Thank you. As a newbie to BlindShell, are you telling me the batteries are removable and replaceable?
Yes.
Oh, very nice. That is a
nice
throwback, but I do like that. Okay, thank you.
And you can buy as many spare batteries as you want, and it charges with USB-C on the bottom, so it's not like a proprietary cable just to charge it. I really like USB-C. Just
Yes, I agree.
And it has a headphone jack.
And it has a headphone jack, which is a winner, chicken dinner, I believe is the phrase. You know, the thing about this phone is when you sit down to use it, I mean, first off, it's important to understand it is an Android phone. In amongst all this, it may not feel like that. It may not even be an experience like that. If you've come from using an Android phone or an iPhone, it's not like that at all because you're using physical buttons to navigate around. And of course, you've got this menu system, which is very simple, isn't it? I mean, it's very simple. You're literally, as you say, arrowing up and down. One thing I found about it, which I was really pleased about, and when I compared it to the Capsys Minivision, or Smart Vision, I should say, 3, is it was much more responsive, much quicker, much faster. And even though the internals haven't changed that much, I'm guessing that hasn't changed much beyond version 2 either, but it still seemed speedy to me, still seemed responsive.
So the Classic 3 is slightly speedier, more speedy than the Classic 2. They did increase the RAM on it, so it does. The startup time is about the same. They did change the startup sound, so it does have a different startup sound. I almost thought about maybe I could get it recorded, but I'm not going to commit myself to that. So yeah, it's a different sound. It's a lot more subtle.
Once you buy one, you'll know, right?
Yeah, hey, there you go. Go to AT Guys and buy one. The other thing that I don't think we mentioned, and if I mentioned it, Stephen, tell me, Michael, you don't know what you're doing, but the BlindShell Classic 3 now has copy and paste, whereas the Classic 2 did not.
Interesting. Okay, I didn't even know that was a thing on there. Okay,
yeah.
Can I ask? Sorry, another question from the newbie in the corner.
No, you cannot.
Sorry.
No. How dare you on a talk show dare to ask questions?
Okay, so the big selling point here: physical buttons, nice and familiar for those of us who maybe aren't that comfortable with the standard smartphone. What's the menu that you're greeted with out of the box? What have you got? Email, messages, I'm guessing. Anything else in there?
So out of the box, when you turn the phone on for the very first time, you are presented with, and this is for the Classic 3 specifically, this out-of-box experience is substantially different in the Classic 2. But the Classic 3, you get some terms and service to agree to. I don't remember having to agree to those on the Classic 2. And I believe it had some basic orientation instructions as well, if I recall right. Now I'm going to have to reset this phone and see what that process is like.
No, you're right. It's got that tutorial when you sort of kick it up.
Okay. So that's what I thought it had, but I wasn't certain. Once you get through all of that, though, and you turn the phone on, it should come up and tell you the time. This is what I tell people is your home screen and a centralized place to start from. Anywhere in the phone, you can press and hold the red button, which is directly above number 3, and it has a slanted line. On the Classic 3, it'll play a little sound to let you know that you're at your home screen. It goes do-do-do, and then it reads the time to you and lets you know that. At this point, you can dial a number. You can press and hold a number if you want to do a quick dial, or press the down button, which is the bottom bar directly above number 2. This opens a menu that says call 1 of 8. On the Classic 2, it would have said call 1 of 7. They've added a new feature called Tandem to the BlindShell Classic 3 that is not available in the Classic 2. In the Classic 3, in either of the phones, if you press the number of the menu option that you hear, it'll jump your focus there. For example, on the Classic 3, I know that applications is number 5. So if I press number 5, it says applications, and number 4 on the Classic 2. And then you can press the green OK button, which is directly above number 1, and that will activate that particular menu option. And my phone's talking to me in the background because I'm pushing buttons.
It's fine.
Stop doing that.
Can I just say as well, just as it is talking away in the background there, it made me remind me of something, which is the speaker inside this phone is, can I just say, terrible? Is that okay to say? It is. Yes. It is pretty bad. Yes. If you even wanted to listen, we have this bar that's set in the blind community, right? Can I listen to audiobooks or podcasts on it? I'd say no. I'd say connect a Bluetooth speaker to it. I'd say connect a pair of headphones. I think it's too weak a speaker. It's too trebly.
It's too tinny.
Far too tinny.
Sorry. Yeah. Again, how could that happen on a talking phone? How could they overlook the speaker? That's massive, isn't it?
Yes.
Yes. Okay. Thank you.
Moving on. I don't know. I don't work for BlindShell, but look. At the end of the day, did I find it a pleasant listening experience, even with just navigating the menus? Not particularly. No. I think you do have to tune your ears to it a little bit, although it is solved by plugging in a headphone. So you can have an earbud in there. You could plug in a pair of headphones. Bluetooth headphones, of course, can connect to it. So you are able
USB-C
to connect stuff
headphones.
up. Yeah. So, and of course that reduces any lag if you're concerned about lag as well. But other than that, I wanted to mention the speaker because it isn't that great.
Yeah. So for users of the Classic 2, you know that this has been the case for, it was with older Classic 2 phones. When you turn the phone onto speaker, when you were making a phone call, full transparency, I don't have a SIM card in my phone, so I can't personally verified that this is not the case with the Classic 3, but it is not with newer Classic 2s. And some users have told me with Classic 3s that it is not the case. You could not adjust the volume. So it would come through super loud and it was very distorted. So I just wanted to throw that in there on the speaker aspect of the BlindShell Classic 3. It has some to be...
It's the same issue I have with the Apple Watch right now. I don't know what it is. Inside my house, my Apple Watch is perfect volume. I can adjust the volume. I go outside, that watch is screaming. I do not know what is going on there. But yeah, okay. So the thing about this phone for me was it always felt, before I got hands-on with it, I kind of always felt like it was that entry-level phone, for someone who, wasn't prepared to, didn't want to get an iPhone, didn't want to go down the Android route. You would have an amount of apps you could play with, you could use that would get you through. You've got WhatsApp on there, you've got email on there, you've got your text, you've got your calls, you've got, various other blindness-related apps, audiobook players and things like that. Brilliant stuff in there. But it kind of ended there. And then with the BlindShell Classic 3, and getting hands-on with it, first off, it feels like the speaker doesn't, but everything else feels quite premium about it. The build quality is good. I would say we used to do a toe test around here, where how many toes would it break if it fell in it? I'd say it would probably break at least one.
Yeah,
but not the big one.
Is a good fare.
But not the big one.
Yeah.
But I do think that it's got a lot more power in it now as a result of having the third-party apps. Let's talk about the third-party apps, because this is a mixed bag of experience for us, right? Because we've been talking about this on our WhatsApp chat. And look, some are working. I had a banking app I downloaded, and I can kind of understand this, but also not, that one of the banking apps I had downloaded, it immediately told me, it did download it, but then it immediately said it was not available to work on this device and removed it. So, it's not able to work with everything, clearly. You can't just download anything from the Play Store.
Yeah, that is true. And a frustration of mine. I would say one of the more frustrating aspects is not even related to banking apps, but there are several apps that it shows in the app catalog. And the third-party app directory, I think is what it's called, or third-party apps. And then you download it, and then it says 100% downloaded part 4 of 4. And then it says, cannot use this, and then deletes it. Just tell me that before you download the app. Like, you should know.
That's what happened to me in the banking app, yeah.
Yeah. Yep.
Question.
Yeah, Sean.
Okay.
You don't have to keep shouting question. You can just talk.
I feel like I'm the gooseberry in this conversation.
No, I want you to ask the questions.
Just ask.
Question. I've forgotten what it was now.
I'm going to get a jingle for that, and I'm going to play it every single time you do that. We find an audio equivalent of a question
I want someone
mark.
to say, Shaun Preece, double tap. What's your question?
Yes.
Look, from what I understood about this, and the big deal was the third-party application support. But this doesn't then. You can't just load up the Play Store. This is a customized BlindShell Classic 3 specific app store.
So they're using a public app store, because on Android they have multiple different app stores that you can install and use. And the one they're using is called Aurora. And so apps that are added to Aurora can be typically installed on the BlindShell Classic 3. Doesn't mean that they'll work or let you activate them, but they can be installed if they're in Aurora. And that's what it uses.
Okay, thank you. Carry on.
Yeah, I mean, the third-party app thing is a bit hit and miss because it does depend on the app. Let's talk about the ones that we managed to get going. I mean, for me, it was Seeing AI, which I thought was kind of cool. I kind of thought it might have been in there already on the phone, but it's not. And bear in mind, and this has come up, and I think this is going to come up actually in the future when we talk about these devices, there's sort of two sides of the fence here. When you buy a device like this, do you want a device that you're using buttons to navigate essentially what is a touch screen, but using buttons to navigate it? Or would you rather have what some are calling the Victor Reader Stream model, which is where you have a button, but 1 and 9, say, that you press and you know exactly what that button is going to do. And that's where BlindShell kind of blurs the lines with the whole third-party app integration, doesn't it? Because you move away from having the ability to move through a menu and you know exactly where you are, to suddenly the Wild West of I'm inside an app, I'm now having to navigate this app in the same way I would if I was swiping left and right on a touchscreen, but instead using buttons.
Yeah, and it's legitimately like you're going into an Android app. It even says web view in a lot of apps, Seeing AI, for example, and that tells you, yep, this is an Android app because Android apps are riddled with web views. You get the pro of being able to navigate that app with your buttons. However, what I'm trying to explain to people, and it is a difficult concept if you've never used a touch screen. But when you use your down button, you're starting in the top left corner and you're moving to the element to the right of the top left corner. And in the cases of Android devices, sometimes there'll be 3 or 4 elements, and then it loops down to the next row and you go all the way back to the left. So if what you're looking for is essentially on the 4th row, 3rd item down, you're pressing the down arrow button 18 times to get to that, or 15 times to get to that particular option. What I like about the BlindShell Classic 3 when the apps work with it is I can touch, if I know that that's going to be a middle of the screen, I can touch the middle of the screen. That moves the focus to the middle of the screen, and then you can down arrow from there or up arrow from there if you're past where you want to be, and then press the OK button. Or if you know that the button you want is in the bottom right-hand corner directly above the repeat button, then you touch in the bottom right-hand corner and you can either press OK or double tap on the screen, whichever one you prefer to do.
Wouldn't a left and right arrow been a benefit here?
Yes, it would have been.
Just blue skying.
So I'm using Bard, which is a app in the US, not the formerly Bard from Google, now Gemini, but the Braille and audio reading download service that's from the NLS. And I use that on the BlindShell Classic 3 and on the Sense Player. And I prefer to use it on the Sense Player because I can use my left and right arrow keys to quickly jump to different parts of the application and vertically or horizontally navigate the interface. And the apps are pretty much the same. Just having that left and right arrow key helps you with being able to easily get to the places you want.
But you also have the touch screen as well. And as you say, that's enabled when you go into that third-party app. So you can swipe. So in a way, you have 2 ways to interact. Now, of course, you can. I think you can still disable the screen entirely, can't you?
You cannot disable it in third-party apps.
Oh, really? So it will always remain on?
To the best of my knowledge. Yes.
Oh, that's interesting. Okay.
But that's not negative, is it?
No. And it's maybe a smart move, actually, because you don't want to, you could get stuck potentially in a way that you need to be able to tap on the screen to move along. We all know apps where you can only swipe so far, and then you need to really, touch something on the screen in order to move it along. I had just that very issue this morning where something just would not get past the point. But, go for it.
Can I just ask about Seeing AI as we're talking about that? So you can navigate around it fine. How does it perform?
It performs pretty well. I was playing with it yesterday, and I was shocked by how quickly it picked up the information that I had. And it scanned a document that I had about a free pancake feast that's happening on the 27th of February. You got to come to Oregon if you want free pancakes, though. And it read that document just fine. It let me navigate it, and I was able to find the phone number there. I did not press OK on the phone number to see if it would let me call that number, but the experience was very pleasant.
And you've got Lookout on there as well, right? So, I mean, you've got all the options in that regard.
And Be My AI.
And Be My AI, yeah. Of course, Be My Eyes.
And Aira.
And Aira. So you've got all the tools that you would expect you would want. I mean, you've got the Blind Toolkit there, right? It's just getting access beyond that to these third-party apps. And there's no guarantee because, of course, the perfect example is the banking app. There are so many banks. There's no guarantees that you're going to be able to access that bank of yours on there. And of course, part of that is driven by the fact, and it's important to say this, again, comparing it with the Capsys Smart Vision 3, that phone is a Google certified phone. The BlindShell Classic...
The Capsys is.
Yes, the Capsys is. The BlindShell is not. So that must be playing a part in this. And it's a shame because actually if they were Google certified, then I guess you would have more access.
It's absolutely fine. Lots of banking apps won't work on beta software, for example, because the developers and the banks themselves make it known what devices and what OSs this will work on. It makes sense to me. I wouldn't expect banking apps to work. Maybe.
I want to talk about the AI features, but before that, Tandem, because this was one. Unfortunately, I didn't get a chance to try this at all. So have you played with this? Have you talked to people who've been using it?
sure haven't. And the reason is because there is an arbitrary limitation that I think is very annoying. You have to have a SIM card in your phone in order to use Tandem. Not quite sure what the requirements are, but if you go into Tandem without a SIM card, it gives you some sort of error message that doesn't allow you to use it. I have talked to a couple of people who have used it, and they say it's a pretty good experience to let someone else control their BlindShell, and you can go through as the controller to be able to add contacts or to configure different menu options or help get someone out of a bind if they have gotten into it. But again, you as the controller and the controlee need to have SIM cards in your devices. You can control it from a BlindShell Classic 3, an Android device, or an iPhone device.
Let's talk AI. Luna is the name of the AI assistant. It connects you with ChatGPT. They've called it Luna. You can access it via the button on the phone. You can talk to the device, like many Android phones you can do this with. So I'm always a little bit skeptical of this because I feel, and it's just because I have a lack of imagination when it comes to using GPT. I mean, if I'm doing a specific task, then fair enough. But, I'm not really interested in asking, what is the tallest building in the world, or, where was flowers invented, or, any of that nonsense. I don't care about any of that stuff. Have you found a use for it? Because one thing, the selling point here was that it can interact with the phone as well. So it's setting calendars, timers, that kind of thing, in the same way that Siri can or Gemini can. I have not found a use for it. So yes, that is one of the selling points, is to be able to set the timers and to add a calendar event. And frankly, I have not done much with those. The most that I've done is asked it who certain people are, and it comes up with some responses. One thing that I will say is, and this kind of hang on, let's not bury the lead here. I mean, come on.
It comes up with some responses.
Okay, so apparently Stephen's an author, and I expect a signed version of his book.
Well, it got most of it right. It hallucinated with the author. I think what it means is I once had my name on a blog. I mean, the problem is my name's all over that Double Tap On Air website, so it must think I write the whole thing.
Okay. Yeah,
I feel like saying, go look in the mirror, ChatGPT. That's all I'm going to say.
We should explain. We asked Luna, tell me about Stephen Scott, or who is Stephen Scott?
And it
who
knew
is Stephen Scott.
It got me right, which was kind of impressive.
Yep. It said you were an author as well.
It said
it
was a
did not know
broadcaster,
who I was.
an author.
So I need to work on my famousness, I guess, and be more prevalent in the community.
We should ask it right now who Shaun Preece is. Go on, ask it.
Okay, so what I'll do is I'll hold it up here, and I'm going to say,
add favorite application.
Oh, wait, no,
don't do that.
Gotta love live demos. So if I go boom, and I say, who is Shaun Preece?
Now, this is one thing you're going to notice about this phone, is it takes a little time to respond.
I like the on-hold music.
Shaun Preece is not a widely recognized public figure, so it's possible that you might be
that's
referring
me.
to someone specific in a particular context.
It knew me more than you! Hooray! I love the BlindShell.
So I'm pretty sure I pronounced your name right. Maybe it's just the way it dictated it / implied what I was trying to ask.
Try
for.
Johnny Breeze.
Johnny Breeze. What is double tap?
Oh. This could
I bet
go
it's
horribly
talk
wrong.
About the yes.
Get
Guns or zombies?
Yes. We'll see how it goes. But
Double tap typically refers to a gesture used on touch screens where a user quickly taps the screen twice in succession. This action is commonly used to perform specific functions, such as zooming in on an image or selecting an item.
So that and it gives a little bit more detail. So it's a fun gimmicky toy, I think, and that's probably not what they want to hear about their assistant, but it does do a quick. What I find it to be useful for is a lot of times people will struggle with going to Google and doing a search for something.
Yeah.
And then actually activating the link that has the information for what they searched for. And I think Luna can be a good intermediate to that search engine to ask it specific questions, and then it'll come back with the results, and you can navigate that with your up and down arrow keys, and you don't have to worry about ads, which, of course, someone new to the internet doesn't understand why all these ads ads are there, and they find it I mean, I've been using the internet for 30 years now or whatever, and I don't understand sometimes why all the ads are there. But the point is it's a good example of being able to just ask it a question. I asked it for a recipe the other day. It gave me it, and then I was able to use the arrow keys to navigate that result.
That's pretty good. That is pretty good. And I think this is the thing. I'm always very cautious of being perhaps obviously obtuse about this kind of device by saying, well, okay, it's not the iPhone killer. It's not an Android killer. It is a different kind of device. And it is, but I think it's an important device to have out there because there are many people who will be looking for, let's face it, a simple way to navigate a device like this, but still be able to access online. And, there's many people who will use that Luna functionality and have great time asking it questions and all the rest of it. So I do see the benefits there. You get the ability to navigate with buttons. You've got that physical aspect to it, which is really good. You're still using a powerful smartphone. So I do see the benefits here. Personally, would I switch to it from an iPhone? No. Would I switch to it if I was on an Android? I don't think I would, but then I wouldn't even switch to an Android at the moment, so I can't go that far.
Wait, you are having some difficulties now using the touchscreen on your iPhone because of your essential tremor.
Which is why this appealed to me, if I'm honest.
Yeah, but even so, are you still saying you don't see you switching over to this?
No, I think my takeaway from this was, having played with the Capsys Smart Vision 3, having played with the BlindShell Classic 3, I was really hopeful that the BlindShell Classic 3 would be the one I'd go for. I think it's a cooler looking phone. I think the colors are nice. I think they've got a good design ethos here. It's not a huge phone in your hand. The Capsys Smart Vision, by comparison, is a much larger phone.
Yes.
And it's got that kind of white medical feel about it. It feels like it should come with some hospital sticker attached to it. And it annoys me about that because I think they could really do more with the design and color and accessories and all of that stuff. But I do think the Capsys wins it for me because it's Google certified. The downside of the Capsys is the speed, and we've talked about this before, the speed and the power that's inside it. If that had more power in it, I'd be way more interested because I know that I'm going to get access to all the apps I want, and that is one device that I would probably switch to. I think the implementation of the third-party apps is good on the BlindShell, but the fact that it's not Google certified means that I'm not able to access important apps I need, and that puts me off it. And
see, for me, I have heard from several users that they're disappointed that he doesn't have 5G. Frankly, I don't care about 5G right now. What I am frustrated about, I don't think that matters. I agree. I don't think that matters. Yeah. What I am frustrated about the BlindShell and the Capsys and almost every other blindness-related telephone that you're going to put in the hands of someone who might need it is none of them support eSIM. And I don't understand that because the biggest challenge for me doing customer service with the BlindShell Classic 3 is getting that SIM card and micro SD card in the phone. And I just tell people, I say, take it to T-Mobile. They'll put the SIM card in for you.
Yeah.
Yeah. It's so much easier. Yeah, you're absolutely right. eSIMs would solve all that problem.
Yep.
I'm intrigued by this, that you would go... Because it seems like the perfect phone, right? The design is nice. You both agree on that. It's a nice design. The layout is easy enough. The buttons work well. But just because of a few oversights, it really sort of downgrades it for me. And I got to say, I'm really surprised that the speaker is of a quality that you say it's of.
See, unlike Steven, I would go with the BlindShell 3 over the Capsys because I like the interface of the BlindShell 3. Yes, it doesn't give me the Google certification on the device or anything, but I know that if I'm in a menu that's saying 1 of 7, I can press number 5 and quickly jump to that menu option. I did not find that reliability when I was playing with the Capsys. If I press number 5, it thought I wanted to dial number 5 or it would go into a different mode. And for me, that makes the BlindShell worth it for me. I do get frustrated with not being able to install some apps, but you know what? I was able to download and install 1Password, and then it asked me to enter my 25-character recovery code. And I'm like, yep, I'm done with this.
Forget it.
How about MetaView?
Yes, that's a great question. Yes, because the Meta View, no, sadly not.
Yeah, the app was in the Aurora store. Then I went to look for it yesterday and could not find it. I found other Meta platforms, but when it was in the Aurora store, from my understanding, people were not able to actually connect their Meta Ray-Ban glasses. It is my understanding that the only wearable technology right now that works with the BlindShell 3, and Cardiff, if you want to send me a pair of Envision glasses, I'll be glad to try it with it, but is the ARX headset, which is wired. And that will work with the BlindShell 3 and 2.
Yeah, that's the only one it would appear it works with. Of course, you could still, if you had a pair of audio sunglasses, I'm sure it would work fine with those because that's just Bluetooth, right? But if you want the cameras, or at least you want the functionality of the Meta Ray-Bans, you're not going to be able to access that for now. At time of recording, that may well change. These things are constantly shifting. But, going back to that point about the Capsys versus the BlindShell Classic 3, if I'm brutally honest, I don't think I'd pick either of them right now. I think the Capsys needs to pick up its feet when it comes to power. I think BlindShell Classic, for me, I don't have the mind to think about when you say menu 1 of 7, my brain doesn't think, I could just hit number 5. I'm immediately on the arrow keys. So for me, that's where the Capsys works. And in a way, it kind of works for me because there's a similarity across the entire Capsys system, because ultimately it's a launcher that you've got, a customized launcher. Every app you go to is the traditional app. You're not going to anything that's built specifically for. There are a couple of apps in there that have been made clearly with Capsys in mind, Capsys Smart Vision in mind, but they are Android apps, so you can get on any other Android phone. You don't live inside a bubble. And I think the problem with these phones like BlindShell, and I've seen it with Synaptic and others, the challenge is often, it's great when you live inside the ecosystem, but it's when you go outside of it. That's when you've got a problem, because then it's a whole new world, and it is the Wild West. And I go back to my days learning the internet when I just wouldn't go on the internet. I would avoid it, actively avoid going online, because I couldn't understand where I was. I was lost on this website. Felt like I was at sea. So, yeah, I don't know. I think it's a great phone. I think it's a wonderful device. I think many people will benefit from it. Tell me, from your point of view, AT guys, who's buying this? Is there a demographic attached to this, or is it a range of ages? So the one that stands out to me is I have a lady who bought the Classic 2 because she has neuropathy in her fingers. And I didn't even know this was a thing. But apparently, if you have neuropathy in your fingers, in some instances, the iPhone touchscreen will not even recognize that you're touching it. So you can touch it all day long and it won't activate. And so she bought this because of her finger needs. Another individual, I don't know. I guess I would say that it's older individuals that are purchasing the phone. Some younger people are buying it, but I would say it's primarily focused at older individuals who just want something that they can use to stay connected. One of my favorite stories to tell people is that we had a customer and her mind was blown when she almost called Demasi and I in tears because she was able to talk to her granddaughter independently using WhatsApp. And her granddaughter lived in Germany and she lived in South Dakota or something like that. And she would have never been able to do that in the past because it would have been too expensive to call her. But because she was able to use WhatsApp on the Classic 2, she was able to talk to her. And those kind of stories really make me excited to support the BlindShell Classic 3 and 2. But to answer your question, I'm not seeing a lot of people going out to buy the Classic 2 or the Classic 3 if they already have a Classic 2, unless their Classic 2 is not working anymore. So it's not like, I have to have the newest and greatest phone, at least what we've seen. It's, hey, I'm new to BlindShell. I want to check out the newest and greatest Classic 3. Or, hey, my Classic 2 doesn't work and I want something new that gives me a bit more features that allows me to get outside the walled garden of the BlindShell a little bit, and then they'll go with the Classic 3. Yeah. And, there's something I know that some people have criticized the fact they haven't changed the design, but I think there's something in that about, not having to constantly go out and buy new accessories for a slightly millimeter design change from an iPhone to an iPhone, You have to go and buy all your new cases and everything else. It's just, it's something quite nice about the fact they've actually just kept everything else the same. I just wish they'd improved that speaker or even just made it better in the first place. For sure. Very interesting. I'll be intrigued to hear what people think. I know lots of people are intrigued by this device, and it may not be for us, but that doesn't mean it's not for you. And that's why it's so important that if you can get hands on with this, you should, because it might be something that is great for you or a family member. I also just want to make it clear that BlindShell did send me a BlindShell Classic 3 for testing purposes. But they have no influence on what we say here. So, we absolutely tell our views and tell our opinions as we find them. But I just want to say thank you to you, Michael, for coming back on and telling us your thoughts on this. Come back soon.
Well, thank you for having me. And AT Guys, thank AT Guys for sending me the BlindShell Classic 3. I did not buy this either. And JJ did not hear. I don't think JJ heard this before it goes live. So appreciate you guys having me on, and it's always fun.
And if you need a new job, then I'm sure someone can help you out with that one.
Thank you, Mickey Onions.
Mickey Onions. Thank you, Mickey.